Welcome to the Dan Lab. Today Tyler's going to show us how to swap out gas tanks, which you'll find attached to the anaerobic chambers, the gas manifold, and the sample concentrator.
Hi, I'm Tyler. Welcome to the Dan Lab. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to handle the nitrogen and other gas tanks that we use in the lab. First, all of the tanks should stay secure as much as possible because they're very heavy and can fall and damage people and or objects. So as you can see, we have these chains that hold them attached to these brackets on the wall. Should be where they're stored. Sometimes there's excess tanks down at the loading dock, but you should find them here. Dave will bring them up from the loading dock for you. Generally, if you need to handle tanks, you should always make sure that this top cap is on. This cap can be removed, it screws on. And it protects the valve stem here. So by protecting the valve stem, it means that when you drop the tank or if you hit it on something, this won't break off and release all of the gas at once, which can happen somewhat explosively and can damage, again, people or things in the lab. So for your safety, you should keep it covered at all times. It also keeps you from accidentally unscrewing the valve and just letting gas out randomly. So these don't need to be screwed all the way down, but they should be screwed down fairly well while you're using or moving the tank, and only taken off when the tank is in a place where it's secure and you're planning on using it. Also, be sure to get the right cap when you put the caps on these tanks because each one has different threading, or some of them have different threading than others. So if you force it on, you can strip or damage the threading off of either the cap or the tank, and then we have to pay for it. So if you're going to move it, use one of the hand trucks that the lab has. Here's one of them. Get it as close as possible to the tank. You still want to be able to move in the space, but you don't want to have to be moving the tank with your hands any further than you have to. Only when you have the hand truck ready and get the chains on it ready to use, should you actually unhook the tank from the wall. At that point, unclip the tank as much as you can from the wall. There you go. When you get the tank off the wall, you should very gently tilt it. Don't go too far because they're a lot heavier than they seem, so if you're not strong enough to hold it up, it can fall over, and they're steel, so they're heavy and strong, they can damage you. And just lightly roll it to get it onto the hand truck. Once it's on the hand truck, chain it up as soon as you can, using the chains that are on the truck. And then, once it's secure, you can tilt the truck back and use it to transport the tank. If you're doing that, be careful that you don't get your hand between the tank and the truck. It can crush your hand a little bit. And for rolling and moving the tank, be careful because a heavy one can tilt over the cart very easily. You can see this is wanting to fall backwards. So make sure that you generally don't leave tanks on the cart any longer than you have to, and don't just push it somewhere and immediately let go, because if you have a little bit of momentum, it might tilt over and fall. So then once you get to the place you want to go to, tilt the tank up. It's generally more secure up like this than tilted back on this particular cart. Unhook the chains that are holding it in place. Again, just gently tilt it so that you don't accidentally knock it over. Roll it into the position that you want to move it to. Get the safety chain from that position and secure it in place. Someone used the safety chain there, so we'll just use this one. And then once it's in place, you can take the cap off if you wanted to use it here in order to attach something to it. But otherwise it should be stored with the cap on. Okay, that's all I have for you.
Start by turning off the tank by twisting the top knob to the right. Then shut off that yellow valve. Unscrew the fitting that connects the regulators to the tank. Use a wrench to loosen it because it will be on tightly, and it might be a little cramped. Continue to unscrew until you can cleanly remove the regulator, and then gently and carefully set it down. Don't disrupt any of the tubing or any of the settings on the regulator. Make sure the tank is off, then screw the tank's cap back on. Caps should always be kept right next to their respective tanks, and know that not all caps and tanks are interchangeable. Then put a tape on the label that says empty or the letters MT. Go get your new tank using a cart and move it to the new location using a gentle rolling motion. Keep the tank close to your body and don't tip it far. Remember that tanks are very heavy and extremely dangerous if they drop. The tank here is being rolled very far. Minimize the distance that you have to move a tank. If possible, chain this tank up while you move the old tank out of its current location. Unchain your old tank and immediately walk the tank onto the cart. Scoot the tank over the bottom panel of the cart, then loop the chains around the front and secure. Be careful not to bump into your new tank in the process. I cannot stress that enough. Tip the cart and tank back to move it, and remember that it's very heavy. Shimmy your new tank into the empty space and secure it with chains. Take the new tank's cap off and set the regulator back on the open valve and screw on the fitting. Screw it to hand tight and then get the wrench and finish it up. Tighten it until it's very tight, but please don't kill it. Open the main valve of the new tank and open the yellow valve of the regulator that you closed at the beginning. Now you're ready to go. In the Dan lab, the cart with the empty tank should be deposited next to Dave's bench for removal. Thanks, Dave! Return the wrench when you're finished.
These are very heavy tanks. They fall over fairly easily and can be dangerous if they're breached, such as if the valve stem hits something while it's falling because it's not protected by the cap. So be very careful when you're moving them. If you drop it, they're very heavy. They could easily break a bone by landing on your leg, hand, foot. And if the top gets knocked off or if the tank is breached by hitting something, they can vent all of the pressure fairly explosively. There's a lot of gas stored in these tanks. They're fairly strong steel, and if that happens to get broken, all of that pressure comes out at once, and it can throw small pieces of steel like shrapnel out of the break in the tank. So be very careful moving these.
Remember that the tanks are heavy and very dangerous if you drop them. If you don't feel confident in your ability to move them, please grab a lab mate with experience.